afternoon, guys. I am Erma. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. This is my first time going live by myself, so we shall see how it goes. I'm excited to just try it and see how it works out. I have been live with another person a few weeks ago. I did a live with the Amish Potato, a guy that also has Amish background. I'm trying to see, can you guys hear me? I'm assuming I'm good. There's a few of you on. And give me a thumbs up or something if you can see me. Just making sure. And how are you guys doing? It's Sunday afternoon here, about 4 o'clock in Ohio. Where are you guys from? I will be waiting a few minutes here, just to let some people hop on, and then I will be discussing what it was like growing up Amish and being Amish. Thank you, Diane. Yes, I see you. Can you hear me okay? Thank you for that. I surely wouldn't want to be talking to myself all afternoon, so thank you for your feedback. Appreciate it. As if you are new here, I grew up Amish and left 7 years ago. In January was 7 years that I left. And thank you, Diane. Yes, LOL. Good. I just wanted to make sure it looks good on my end. Thank you so much. And I never thought of it as, being different. And now I realize how different it is growing up in this culture compared to when I was Amish. Kids grow up very, very differently. And even as adults, things are very, very different. So I thought I would just kind of try to lay out, give a little bit of a perspective what it was like to grow up Amish and kind of give a picture, if that makes sense. I love good visuals, and I will try to draw a visual for you, I guess, with my talking. So if you have questions, feel free to ask questions at any time. We'll get to them as I can. In between speaking and so forth. Welcome again to those of you joining. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Let me know where you're from. Where are you guys from? I will wait 2 more minutes and then we will kind of get into it. So it's beautiful here in Ohio. It's chilly out there. I went to church this forenoon, had a really good service, and then have a pretty easy rest of the day. I like to have my Sundays pretty chill, pretty down, laid back, reading or word searches or going on a walk, hanging out with friends and so forth. And that is kind of what it looks like this afternoon and this evening. Had a smoothie and a protein shake and just taking it pretty easy. So that is typical Sunday, but I do have sometimes a Bible study Sunday evenings, although tonight it got canceled, so that's sometimes I have dinner there and a Bible study in the evening. So as you can see, the sun is shining brightly and it really messes with my being able to see me if I have it open. So I guess you can see the sunshine through the curtains, right? Alrighty, what it was being Amish. So we were, being born in an Amish family. Some people, there's no rules, or we had no rules surrounding birth. I was born in a care center. Some of my siblings were born at home, and some of them at the hospital, and most of us at the care center. So a lot of different options. We were born into an Amish family. Didn't know anything different. I don't know that, we were always used to having non-Amish neighbors and taxi drivers, and where Dad worked, there were non-Amish. So I knew about non-Amish all my life. Preschool, went to, we didn't have that we actually went to in-person preschool. My parents and my family really did well with even trying to, I think most of us um, learned our numbers and maybe our basic colors. And so we would have been taught, my first language is Dutch, Pennsylvania Dutch. Thank you, Diana, from California. That's awesome. How was the weather out there today? We would have talked Dutch, was my first language. And so in school, we talked English. We were only allowed to talk English in school. So therefore, um, mom always tried to make sometime a year or so before we went to school, we would talk English some just to learn some English words so that when we went to school, it wasn't all strange, unfamiliar um, language so that we could understand it. So but otherwise, I did not go to kindergarten personally. And then I think it was the year after I went to start at first grade. That year, my school started having kindergarten, and nowadays they always have a kindergarten. And the kindergarten would look more like maybe coming for 4 or 6 weeks at the end of the school term, and they would just have a few preschool books, learn numbers and colors and shapes and that sort of thing, how to write their name. It would give them a little bit of a feel before they went to first grade. And that started right, as I said, as I think it was in first grade. So I didn't go to kindergarten myself at that time. I went to a parochial school, an Amish parochial school. The first 7 years, we walked about half a mile, and on small country roads. I drove that a few weeks ago, that little road. I'm like, it is so little because I live here by the freeway. And so it just felt like such a itty bitty road again. And then in my seventh and eighth grade, we had about a mile and a half through woods and through fields and um, to go to school. Now, we didn't have a rule. There were some that went to public school, and there were here and there families that did homeschool. I would say the majority of us went to an Amish one room parochial school, but it wasn't a rule that we had to go to that. That was just kind of the what most people did in general. It was up to our parents. And so, yeah, walking to school was something that I really enjoyed. There were times when it rained or if it got really cold that my parents or my older siblings would drive us to school with a horse and buggy. Um, but we actually preferred walking because we felt so good walking that mile and a half. And there were times when a few of us would together decide we were going to run all the way, like not walk one step. Um, so that was always fun. And we started first grade at age 6. We had to be 6 before school started, or before October. Now they do before school started. You have to be 6. My birthday's in September, and I started a little early, but nowadays you have to be 6 before the school starts the last part of August. And through school, as far as at home, we already had some jobs. Even before school, I have a little niece, a 2-year-old niece, and a niece that is 1. And they are already helping with the dishes and sweeping and stuff. And it's not that they have to, but they want to. And my sister-in-law and my brother, we do too. If they want to help, we fully allow them to help. That way, they feel important, they feel grown up, and they love it, and it makes them feel important. So even during our school years, my sister and I would, and my younger sisters, we would have chores before we went to school. One of us would have do the dishes in the morning, and then one of us would pack the lunches, and the other one sweep. And then my brother usually did the barn chores before he went to school. And that was just a normal thing. That was what we did before we went to school. And then after school, we walked home. Usually had a snack on the way home, especially at the last 2 years when we had a mile and a half. It was a lot further. We usually had pretzels or something for the way home, and another cookie or a few when we got home, right? Um, And then after we got home, there were bucket lunches to wash and so forth. Um, we didn't know anything different. We didn't know. Now when I look at that, there's so many like kids have video games, they have tablets, they have iPads, they have you know, I don't know, do they do lunches at school or lunches at home, or you can choose maybe? I believe so. Um, we didn't have none of that. We were very hands on. We learned to drive a horse about, I think I was 13 or right 13ish when I started driving a horse, and I could take myself to places. That really depends on the kind of horse you have, and even how your parents are. There are some moms that don't drive horses. I would say the majority of them do drive horses, and my mom was a horse lover. Like she drove pretty much any horse after like as an adult, and so she wasn't afraid to let us drive horses, and if we were comfortable we could go with it basically, and if the horse was safe. um, and so that was just kind of the most people went through that system, so to speak. um, I love school. We always had recesses and we had a lot of fun. Graduated at 8th grade, and then we're done with school. We Everyone goes until 8th grade. I went through 8th grade, and then because my birthday is the last of September, for legal reasons, you have to be 14 to graduate. And so I went for another good month the following year where I was just kind of the teacher's helper until my 14th birthday. That way, for legal reasons, I had to be 14 to like legally graduate. So that is, I helped the teacher for a while after I was technically graduated. And then after we're done with schooling, I actually had a job before I graduated. I helped my uncle with laundry and cleaning and all of that. Um, right after school, I think when I was in school, I would do it once a week. I would go to his house and do the laundry. He lived next door. So that was a part-time job, once a week, do his laundry. And then after school let out and I graduated, then I went once a week for a whole day and did cleaning, baked cookies, did all of the laundry, cleaned the whole house, and maybe fixed a casserole or fixed some dishes, food for him for the following week. So that was my first time part-time job. And then the rest of the time I helped mom at home. Most of the time, it really varies on the family size. I am the sixth to oldest, number six, and then there are also five younger than I. So I am right in the middle of 10 siblings, five older, five younger. So my sister, just older than I, when I graduated, she got a full-time job. Um, let me read this. My Amish friend told me her mother believed pregnant women should not look at monkeys at zoos or their. Oh, I lost it. I'm trying to get yours. Should not look at monkeys at zoo or their babies would be born ugly. Did you ever hear that superstition? I never heard of that, Barb. Sorry, it goes away after a little bit. Oh, bandana grandma. I never heard of that. That looking at monkeys while pregnant you're born. Oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. I never heard of that. Um, there could be something like that out there, but I personally never heard that before. That's awful. Ah, my. Um, so my sister, just young older than I, when I graduated, she got a full-time job, and I was mom's helper at home besides that one day a week. And so I started helping mom with cooking and laundry. We did laundry 3 times a week. Everyone put their laundry down the chute Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then we did a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Went down and did the laundry. And at that point, we also milked a herd of 100 to 200 goats at the time, where we had a bulk tank and milkers, and we sold the milk kind of like cow dairy farmers. And so when I graduated, I helped with the milking in the morning, helped my dad, and then my younger brother would also help. And So oftentimes when I came in from the barn, my mom had already started laundry. We had two laundry machines. Not everyone did, some did, and it was like the old-fashioned wringer washers, but it was run with electricity. Um, we had um, we had the um, generator that ran two of our two wringer washers, and we didn't at that time have a spinner. Now they also have a large spinner that runs from that, and so I helped with that. I had a question here from Diane. Do you ever work as a mother's helper for a new mother? Personally, I did not. I did not. Most of some of my sisters did. My youngest sister especially um, helped a lot of mothers, and my sister older than I actually like lived in made for some mothers with new babies. I'm trying to think. I think at that time when I graduated school, um I had that 1 day a week job, and I probably had one of the, like, my older siblings were all living at home, and what my younger siblings too, and so there was a lot of work at the time that I helped. And then I had that 1 day a week that I already like helped my uncle. And so I don't think I ever helped a mom with a newborn baby, but that is very common. And I know my sisters did quite a bit of that. And so I learned to love housework. My mom had a very good system for everything, like laundry. We put the laundry down the chute Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Then we went through the bathrooms, picked up the, hand towels, this and that, and did the laundry. And but there are many that after they graduate from school, they help their mom if needed, and or if not, they get a job. Sometimes a part time, sometimes a full time job, and that during that time, from like 14 to 20, is a really good place where they start learning, what do I want to do, what job do I want, what am I good at, what do I like, and figure out. They don't do schooling for it, but they get the hands-on experience and kind of figuring out what they want. And I always liked housework. And then at 16 or at 15, we could start going to the youth volleyball games. That was always very exciting to look forward to. Almost every Friday night during the summer, there would be outdoor volleyball games for the youth group. And at 15, it was just a place to start going to the volleyball, but not really the other things. Just as a place to make friends and kind of start getting your feel with who your friends are and who are your age, and going into the youth. I actually started with having health issues at 16. I was diagnosed with mononucleosis. Maybe some of you are more familiar with Epstein-Barr virus. And I went to some of the youth things the first half year, and then after I turned 16, and after that, I did not go to many of the youth things ever because of my health. Later on, I was diagnosed with Lyme's disease. I had adrenal issues, and I'm actually thinking about making a video for that itself, because it's a very, very long journey, and it's not a common being Amish necessarily. So at 16, we did not, it was expected from my family at least. It was expected kind of that I joined the youth group that my siblings were in. My 5 older siblings were in the youth group. Automatically was kind of made the assumption that I would join. And I actually wasn't sure if I wanted to. I loved Sundays with my family. I loved Sunday evenings playing with my siblings. And like there's some things, we Sunday evenings were a time to play and chill, and I'm a very, very laid back person. I was more of a homebody, and so I wasn't sure if I wanted to go, but it started out with then that I went to the youth. My best friend, whom I had from first grade, I got to know her in school in first grade, and then we were best friends. And so when all the way through, we were just always really good friends. And so when I was 16, there they had the youth group at their house right when I turned 16. And of course I was going to go because it was at my friend's house. And that was kind of what got me started. Well, then the next Sunday, my siblings were gonna, it was just expected that I go, and so I went, and before I knew it, I was going regularly, and I enjoyed it. It was good. It was okay. Um, and however, it's not necessarily a church expectation. I don't think. There are people within that, within our church, that when they turned 16, they started going with what we call the vehicle youth. Maybe they had friends that got vehicles when they were 18, and that was like, it wasn't a church rule or anything. It was just in my family that was what it was expected of me. And and then there were some youth that just decided not to go through the singing, and they just kind of hung around at home or with their cousins, type of thing. We did not do the Rumspringa. We That wasn't, just wasn't the practice in my family, and or even in our church. Like, there are some that would have been with the vehicle youth. And we did not call that Rumspringa, although that would have been similar, I think. But so yeah, I joined the youth group at 16, and then for the next few years, it is, I would say, 16. Some people started dating at 16. I would say in my family, we were more encouraged to wait until we were actually baptized, or at least 18 to start dating. And so there was no age exact. I would say, at least 16, and then people sometimes started dating. And so when we during those years, for me, was a lot of searching, even from 14 to 16, 18, a lot of searching in the Bible, reading the Bible, and I was very confused. I was very I didn't know what I believed. I wasn't sure. I just tried to fit in. I was trying to find my identity at that point. And but it is very normal for people, some to join the youth, or the youth, our main youth group, our organized youth group. And that was a really good youth group, actually. Like, we had Sunday evening singings, we had Friday night volleyball games, very organized. And there were a number of different things. We had birthday parties. That was mostly girls with girls, guys with guys. Birthday parties for, say my friend had a birthday, we would get together and surprise her and have an evening with just a fun night. Potato planting, weeding, and digging is something that the youth do. They have a field that they help each other plant the potatoes and then weed them every now and then in the summer, and then dig the potatoes up again. And those go for people that are maybe in need, widows, widowers, young families that are struggling, that kind of thing. It was mostly just for something to do, but it was also kind of a way to help the community. Cleaning, oftentimes. Okay, let me get this question first. Bandina. If the Amish have English, it disappears pretty fast. Let me get it again. If the Amish have English visitors in their homes, can they eat at the same table with them? Or would they serve the food on separate small tables like TV trays to be separate? Great question. We would have had them sit at the same table. We didn't often have non-Amish friends over for a meal. There was one time when I was really little that really stuck out to me. It was so different. My dad's boss was non-Amish, and he was good friends with his boss. He worked for them for years and years and years, and he and his boss became really good friends. And we invited them, I think it was for Easter, one Sunday, and they were there for a meal. Like, it wasn't a big deal. We ate with them. We were fine with eating with them as long as they were not excommunicated from the Amish. And that really did not happen often, that we had people over that were not Amish. It just, our circle was just Amish. We didn't have a lot of outside, what we would have considered outside friends. But yeah, we were allowed to eat with them. And so I was going with cleanings. Many times, even when my parents had church at their place, everything gets super, super clean, right? And at the time that I was sick and unable to help, the youth group girls just came in and they would ask my parents, "Hey, are we allowed to come and help you clean?" And my mom and dad would say, sure. And they got a few taxis together and just told whoever, just kind of spread the word. And maybe 10, 20, 30 girls showed up one evening and they would bring snacks. And I helped a few times later on, or even just went with them, even if I couldn't really clean, just to be part of it. And they cleaned walls and ceilings and furniture and windows and frames, or worked in the garden, or um, got the outside, the yard ready, or whatever we had to do. Like they just, that goes so fast. And I really enjoyed those. It was just a way to, oftentimes it was young moms with a lot of kids, and just an evening like that would really help them out. Um, Wood making, the guys would often would do that too, where they help um, once a year. Say someone has woods or something they want to clean out, they might make a lot of wood and stack it and like split it and then drive it to widows or widowers, or even for yourself. Like if someone had a lot of wood to make, they would just go help them and then they would get the wood. Like it was mostly just an idea for something to do. We always said that the guys were jealous because we girls love cleaning, and then the guys started doing the wood because they were kind of jealous that we were doing something, right? But it was a good thing. Disaster aid projects in different states is very common for them. Just a few weeks ago, my sister was at a project in Louisiana for a week, sometimes 2 weeks. I think it's Muslims a week, or maybe it's 2 weeks. I'm not sure. Where they have and organize something that they're continuously going on disaster aid projects. I know in Texas and Louisiana were two that they've helped a lot over the past few years. That's a good way to outreach. Singing for nursing homes. I know at one point, I'm not sure if it's going back since COVID, but they sang for people at nursing homes, maybe every Sunday, or was it once a month or twice a month? They were like, maybe a van load would go here and a van load to another nursing home, and they would just sing for the people, just as a way of brightening people's days. Envelope stuffing for Christian Aid Ministries, food or meat packaging for ministries were something that we did. Christian Aid Ministries is a local place that does a lot of outreaches for Haiti and places in other land places, so we would help with that, like stuff newsletters that went from all over the place, or made soup, put like dry things together for a simple soup that they would ship. And comfort block cuttings, we would cut comfort blocks or not comforts that would then go to Christian Aid Ministries that they would then ship overseas. And so those were just some of the things that we did as a youth group. I never personally, never did that Rumspringa. I do know kind of how it works. For us, that was an old thing at the time. Like my parents were with the youth, they did some of that. It was, but I never personally had that experience at all. And for my family especially, it was my oldest brother joined the church. He became a member at age 17 or 18. And so most of us others did that too. I was 18 when I became a member. And it was the right thing to do. Like I wanted to be a good person, and I was a born again Christian even though I didn't know it. Like you wanted to be a good person, and that's what good people did. And there was a lot of wrestling inside for me, because I did read the Bible, I read it in English, and some things I just didn't know. Or I remember the head covering being one thing, like, and then I knew of a few people that had left the Amish and they weren't dressing conservative, and I was like, those people were good people. They're good, honest people. Like, why? But then they seem so free. And so there were a lot of things that I kept inwardly, but I wrestled with it on the inside, but I didn't, share it with people. I, there were many things that were just traditional. And so dating 19, 20, I would say people started getting married at about 20, sometimes 20. I would say 21 was kind of average, but 20, and then any time after that, my brother got married in his 30s, and like there was no bad thing about that. That was just kind of how the general went. So then it started all over. You became a member of the church, and before you got married, and then you got married, you started having kids, and it was just that whole cycle again, right? And there were I can't even put everyone in our community the same way, because there were people from our church that never went to the youth group. They were Amish, they became members, but they just didn't, maybe sometimes, but they just didn't often come to the youth group. They just hung out with cousins and did their own thing. And there were some in our church that after they got 18, they had got vehicles, and they had their own friendship group. I don't really even know with who they were. And then after some time, they started dating, and then they joined the church, and now they're married Amish people. So it really varied even within our community, but in general, years ago when there was Rumspringa, and there were a group of people, about 5 people, that really didn't want that. The Rumspringa, the wildness, the drinking, the partying, the open door dating, the bad courtship, they didn't want all of that. And so they started coming together at a kitchen table on a Sunday evening and just started singing. And they just started with, 2 of their friends. And with time, the table was completely full, got to 2 tables, and that nowadays is, I don't know how many different youth groups, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of youth that came from that, what they started as, we're not going to do the Rumspringa, and we're going to do it different. And now there are hundreds, there's districts and districts and districts of those. And then when it gets to about maybe 150 youth, then they divide it just by okay, this road about in the middle, they kind of divide it into 2 or multiply it times 2 just to make it, handleable, or make it more that they can have youth leaders and people have space for it and that type of thing. It's not a negative thing, it's a positive multiplying thing. So my parents wouldn't remember when that started. No, we're not going to do the Rumspringa, and this group started and kind of actually took over. And I feel there are more now that no longer do the Rumspringa in my home area, in my home church type. Now, we had neighbors that were Schwarzentrooper Amish. We had neighbors that were Dan Church. We had neighbors that were Tope Church. And 2 of those still did quite a bit of the Rumspringa. And I don't even understand all of that, but I'm very familiar with Rumspringa. I don't know the details as much because I was not part of that. So let me see if I have a question. I noticed there came some in. Do you participate in music worship in your new church? Yes, I actually do. Okay. Yeah, well, I am not part of the worship team. I love worship, and I sing along. In my church now, we have a worship team, and then we all sing, and I help with that. But I am not part of the worship team at our church. Nope. I do help with the kids ministry, and that's more me. I enjoy helping with the 2 and 3-year-olds. We have kids ministry, and so I do that part of it Sunday mornings. And then I also talk with people that are new that I help with. So that is kind of the what it was like growing up. I thought I have a few things that I think there is a mixture in the culture of tradition and religion. There are many things that are just done out of tradition. This is the way we do it. We're not going to change. And then some of that gets crossed over with, well, we don't want to change it because scripture, this or that, gets added to it. And that was not the original Amish way. But the Amish have drifted from their original beliefs and so forth. And so some of the things, and a question that I got recently And I will read it just to make sure I get the question right. One of them was, have you read, my question, whether you like to read fiction books? Have you read the stories about Amish men and women and they develop relationships which often become romance? If you have read any of the fiction stories, would you state whether the customs are being shared in an accurate manner? Thank you for your honesty. So yes, I have read some of the Amish, a little bit of some of those fiction books, not many of them. It was at the time that I was Amish and since, and it to be honest, it really, I don't want to even say. I'm like, this is so not true. This is so far. This is a whole show made up that is so not accurate, and I couldn't even finish reading it, to be honest. I tried a number of different ones, and it feels to me and it seems to me that people wrote books, and they are fiction after all, and in a way that it's like to get people's attention, or it's a storybook. But I have not, no, that has not, they're not accurate. And I'm not saying none of it is accurate. There are parts to it, maybe, but not as a whole. And I do not, in general, read a lot of fiction. I, even growing up, like, I would read some mystery stories, like Nancy Drew. And was it Nancy Drew? I think Hardy Boys was boys, and then Nancy Drew was, and it was okay. But it was always, I always knew how the story would end. I would always know how the story would end. They're gonna solve the problem, right? And same with fiction. I just never have preferred fiction. I love reading, and I read most of the true story books. And there was another question. I saw a video. What do you do for fun besides going to youth meetings, volleyball, softball, hide and seek in the corn? And if I ever broke the rule, okay, let's get the first part. What did I do for fun things besides going to volleyballs and youth things? And so in school, we had a lot of games in school, but in the evenings, we were done with our chores and we had some fun free time and whatever. Some outdoor games that we played was, when we were very little, was horse. We would have a twine and drive each other. And we had a long blacktop lane that was not busy on a Sunday because it was a very small blacktop, basically someone's lane to the store, so it didn't really get used on Sunday too much. And so we would do ride our bikes, we would rollerblade, we would play house and have our own places to live and go to each other and have stores and different things like that. And Andy over the house or over whatever, different barns, kick the ball, tag, freeze tag, prisoner space, rollerblading, house, gray wolf, rapid, and volleyball were some of the things we played when we were younger. Not so much volleyball until we were older, but in the evenings, yeah, we would just have a lot of games like that. We were like, hey, you want to play Andy over in the summer, and grab a ball and go out, and before we knew it, the other siblings would come and we'd have an Andy over. Or on a Sunday afternoon, we would play on this blacktop lane that didn't get used much. And there were quite a bit of the neighbors that joined, and we would go rollerblading and biking and play sheriff and so forth. And then indoor games were like Dutch Blitz, Skibbo, Nine Patch, Fista, Sorry, Rook, Checkers, Aggravation, Phase 10, Deer Hunter's Challenge were some of the things that we played indoors, especially in the winter. But even in the winter, we would play like Fox and Geese and things in the snow, snowball fights, make snowmen, sledding. In the first school that I went to free school. It's an school that was built in the 1800s. It's no longer going. but we had a long sledding hill, so we often went sledding, and then evenings we would find hills to sled on all the time in the winter. And then as the youth, even now, like when we get to the youth, there's a lot going on, and we would still, like, my siblings still play games in the evenings sometimes. We would still play all of the same games like Fista and Rook and Phase 10, and Dutch Blitz is just one in our family that keeps going and going and going, and we still love it because, I don't know, it's just a fun game. So yes, we did a lot of games in my family. I don't really know how others did. Ping pong was, my parents have a ping pong table, so we did ping pong, hockey. I'm trying to think, there's, like, in the winter, yeah, there's always a game going. If I go to my parents in the evening, it's not totally unusual for someone to be like, hey, do you want to play 7-Up with root cards or whatever? And especially on a Sunday afternoon and evening, we will be playing games. So we did a lot of games, yes. So, do any of you have questions? That is kind of the gist of it, what I have for today, what I have made in my notes. And I didn't know if you guys have questions, feel free to ask questions. What are your home church beliefs concerning personal salvation? Great question. That would depend on who you ask. If I would ask, say, the bishop, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's a born-again Christian who would say salvation is through Christ, accepting him as a personal savior, and accepting him as a personal Lord and Savior, and that he died on the cross, and that is how we get to heaven. Some of my family would totally agree with that. Like, I have people from my home church that are born again Christian, and that is what they would think as salvation. They totally think. There are some that think that in that church that feel because I left the Amish that there's no chance that I'm going to get to heaven, that you have to be Amish to get to heaven, and in that same church. So even as a church in general, they do not all believe the same thing. It's very unfortunate that it is that way, but it is just how it is. I would say they would focus on a lot of works in hopes of they can get to heaven. I have not heard almost anyone say, well, they know they're going to heaven. Like, it's kind of, well, we live for God, we read the Bible, we are honest, we don't steal, we don't lie, we don't cheat, we don't kill, and we try to dress right, we try to follow the rules, and we hope we get to heaven. I hear that quite a bit, and so I think a big focus would be on the works of being a Christian. And many of those things aren't necessarily wrong. It's not that they, all of those things are good. But our salvation can't be based on works because we'll never be good enough, right? And so I would say that, yeah, they focus a lot on works. But the actual salvation varies from person to person. There are some born-again Christian in that church, and there's some that are not born again. Hello from Lebanon County. Hi, Solar, Pennsylvania. Welcome. Glad you joined us this afternoon. Getting back to they disappeared. Do most Bandana Grandma? Do most Amish churches discourage reading the Bible? English Bible? Do they encourage reading Bible at all? Maybe a German Bible. Great question. I cannot speak for all of the churches because it varies so much. I could give you, say, they encourage reading the Bible, and it would be true for some. I do know Amish churches that do that. I also know Amish churches that do not encourage reading the Bible. I also know Amish churches that encourage reading it in German, and there are some that encourage reading any Bible. So all over the place, right? So where I come from, my parents were good with us reading the Bible in English. They were totally like, I grew up. The first time I read it through, I read it in English and German together. I had one that was side by side, like, and so I would read 5 verses of each, and that is basically how I read through the Bible. And I would read both, and my parents were totally cool with that. Um, I I don't really know even say what our ministry would have said or others in the church. Like, I actually don't really know what other people thought or said. It was a personal thing, I guess. I did hear at one point someone say that they thought this person that went to a less strict Amish church, this person went New Order, and one of our church people said something that he thinks this person just read too much Bible and got confused. So I actually heard that about myself. There were a few people in my life that felt at one point at least that I read too much scripture, and because some people that left, they were like, well, we want something more scripture, or we feel this and this, we don't agree with scripture, and then people would be, well, they were reading too much scripture and they got confused. I would hear that a few times, but in general, like, my parents were supportive of me reading the Bible in English, and I don't really know about the other church people, to be honest. I don't know that I really heard too much. And then there was I know of, a stricter church that you have to read the Bible in German, or at least in Dutch, and they had there are Bibles in Dutch, even though it's not proper written language, I should say. So, and then I also know of a church where they totally encourage you to read the Bible, and that's awesome. Great questions there. Just reading a little bit, see if I'm caught up with messages or comments. I think I am. So I have been on for 47 minutes. Any other questions? Anything else that you would have? I guess it was normal. We didn't know anything else growing up. It was normal to be Amish, and it was normal to live that way. And it's like, at one point, like, I didn't know anything else until I left. I didn't know anything else until I lived with, as an un-Amish. So it's kind of like, in a world, this is comfortable. And sometimes we can take comfort for being a good thing, and not saying it's always a bad thing, but it can also become, what we think is right, and whether it is right or not. So anyways, I hope this was insightful. Of those who discourage Bible reading, they say only church ministers were able to properly interpret the Bible to avoid confusion. No, I don't. I actually don't think I can really give a lot of insight into that. From my knowledge, the ones that said you shouldn't read the Bible too much. You shouldn't read the Bible too much. We should just go with what our forefathers laid. So they believe, like, okay, our forefathers decided we should wear bonnets, and that we should wear this kind of head covering, and have this kind of buggy. And so some of what I've heard is that people thought, well, we don't want to, like, let's trust our forefathers, the one that did this. Let's trust that they know what the Bible says. Like, they know better than us. And I have actually challenged Amish on this. I'm like, so you're trusting your dead forefathers to be right. Like, why not read the Bible? Like, are they your God? And that has me given something to think about. But I'm not sure I could totally speak on that for the rest of the part. Let me see. I joined to learn more about my Amish neighbors. Yes. Being respectful is always good. Um, being very, very respectful, and but also being open. Like, if you have questions, just ask them. Like, and if they would rather not talk about it, hey, that's fine. Like, being open, but also being very respectful can come a long ways. Do you still speak the Amish German dialect? Can you give us an example? Ja, ich schwätze alles noch Deutsch und ich weiß, du kannst kein Wort verstehen, sie so. Aber, okay, I just said yes, I can speak Dutch, and I know you can understand the word I'm saying. Yes, I do speak Dutch. I would say I do mostly use English because the culture I'm in, the church I go to, I don't think there's anyone that can speak Dutch in my church. And so, but I speak Dutch with my family. So when it's crazy. Like, when my dad calls, I automatically speak Dutch. But when someone from church calls, I automatically speak English. And so there were a few times I went to a local banquet that is at a minister place, that there's a mixture of Amish and non-Amish. And I took two of my friends along that cannot speak Dutch, and then I sat with my friends, but we were at a table, and I sat beside friends who spoke Dutch, and then I saw some of my former ministry, or neighboring ministry, and I couldn't go up to them, and I couldn't get myself to speak English. Like, that just felt so weird. But then my friends that I brought along couldn't speak Dutch, and yeah, that is sometimes a challenge. And every now and then, when I don't use Dutch as much for a while, I'll go to my family and I'm just kind of like, okay, how do I even say that word in Dutch? And then when I'm with my family for a weekend, Dutch, I'm speaking Dutch for a few days, and then I'll come to, my friends in my little circle, and I want to throw Dutch words in. Yes, I speak Dutch very fluently, and I tried to give you an example. Let me say something in English first, and then just to give you an example. I'll just say, it is a very beautiful day today, and I think I am going on a walk. So in Dutch, that is, es ist really en skillnad dag här, och ich glaube to go and walk. That is an example. Yes, I speak Dutch. I love you being very sensitive to not speaking for others, so they follow tradition rather than Bible. Thank you for that. I try to be very sensitive, and so they follow tradition rather than the Bible. Some of them, to some extent, yes. It really depends a lot on their bishop, because some of them, if they would, depending what they do, they would get in trouble with the bishop. And then there are those that the bishop isn't like that. So I would say it's some of both. If someone would ask them to, many of their decisions are based on tradition. Let's put it that way. But there are also a lot of decisions that are scripturally correct, or from my parents. And I would say yes, there are people that strictly follow tradition more than the Bible, and there are also people that follow the Bible more than tradition, and it's a mixture of both. I'm not sure I can kind of even totally explain that, because it is a mixture of both. And yeah, it's hard to there there are people. There's definitely more tradition. There's also religion. That's just the way to do it because of they understand more of the law and not grace. That is a big part too. And then there are some that are very Holy Spirit led in some areas, but they're closed minded in other areas. Um, hard question, but yeah. All right. Um, do I speak German or can I read in German? So German would be my third language. In fourth grade or so, we would have learned German and in school. And I can read German, but I don't understand what I'm reading well at all. And especially now that I don't use it at all anymore. But I can read in German and I can speak some words in German. So, all right, guys. It was good chatting with y'all. If you let me know, do you like these kind of lives? This was the first live that I have ever done myself. If you like it, let me know just so I know. I love feedback to know what my audience likes to hear. And I also have a lot of video ideas coming up. I have one that will be coming up Wednesday. That will be I will be talking about Amish women if they are overworked. That is a concern for people, and I don't know about you guys, but that Amish people are so overworked, and so I kind of dug into that. We'll be doing that. That will be going out Wednesday, and if you like this kind of content, feel free to share with your friends on social media. We will be. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you are like this kind of content. And what type of shoes do the women wear where you come from? I've seen some wearing black shoes, flip-flops. Yes, we could wear any kind of shoes. There is really no rules on what type of shoes you can wear where I come from. My family wears flip-flops, sandals, Skechers, New Balance, like any kind of shoes you can think of. There was no rule on shoes. And thank you, Solar. You did a great job with your first live. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I also have a video that I am thinking of doing. There was a time in my life that I almost died. And that is some that I'm having to prepare myself mentally for because I know it's going to be a lot for a video. And what I eat in a day, I do eat a lot of one ingredient items, and I will be doing a video on what I eat in a day and can I work at the moment, how is my health, and are some of the video ideas that I have so far. So if you like that kind of thing, subscribe, stick around, share it with your friends, and I will be seeing you again sometime soon. Bye guys.